ASUS have a new flagship now, meet the ROG Phone 60 Ultimate. This is basically the same ROG Phone 6, but with an overclocked Mediatek Dimensity 9000 Plus SoC on the inside, hence the D, and that's what the D in the 60 stands for. And there are also a couple of other interesting changes. So today in this video, let's get the unboxing out of the way and take a look at the Dimensity 9000 Plus toting ROG Phone 60. Let's see if it can actually compete with the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 toting ROG Phone 6. Hey guys, Ash here from C4 Tech, and let's get started. So the box is pretty similar to the box that I got my ROG 6 Pro in. It's a little dinged up, but that's the price you pay for international shipping. It happens. Anyways, opening it up, giving it a little more force than usual. We have this card for the AR setup. Now here's a card to my video on the ROG Phone 6 Pro, the unboxing, if you want to check out that AR stuff. Now next up, we get to the ROG Phone 60 itself. It feels pretty much the same. It's in fact pretty much the same. Removing that sticker. This part here, this is one of the changes that I was talking about. We will get to it in just a little bit. Next up, we have this black insert that houses the SIM tool alongside the case. Pretty much what we've seen with the ROG Phone 6. Now here is a 30-watt charger. Usually most markets, they do get a 65-watt charger that's not any bigger. I really love how ASUS continues to use the power delivery standard, meaning if you were getting that 65-watt charger, you could probably use it to charge ultra-portable laptops or Steam Decks or whatever. Anyways, let's get to this box. This is the Aeroactive Cooler 6, and it is one of the very few really interesting smartphone accessories that I've come across in recent times. Now this is included with every ROG Phone 60 Ultimate. So to be clear, the Ultimate, it is the highest spec. That's 16 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of storage. Now, if you were wondering, hey Ash, didn't the Snapdragon SKU, the ROG Phone 6 Pro, didn't that have 18 gigs of RAM? Well, yes, it did. Now this change, I guess it was necessitated due to the fact that the ROG Phone 6 and 6 Pro, they use LPDDR5 RAM, while the 60 and the 60 Ultimate, they use LPDDR5X, so probably 18 gig RAM options for 5X wasn't available. Anyways, let's now circle back to that other change, the more interesting one. Now this is only applicable to the ROG Phone 60 Ultimate. The regular 60 doesn't have it. Remember this part where the ROG Phone 6 had a Dare to Play logo with an LED? In its place, we have a flap now. Yep, this is a flap that pops up to reveal the innards. Now when you connect it to the Aeroactive Cooler, it automatically does that, exposing the internals, enabling more air to be pushed easily. It's not something you're gonna ever notice. ASUS says this automated mechanism is tested for 40,000 uses, which might not seem like much given usually with the flip cameras and everything, people talk about 200, 300,000 uses, but putting the Aeroactive Cooler on and removing it is not something you're gonna do as much as flipping a camera out for face unlock or selfies. So if you think about it, 40,000 uses, even if you're gonna put the Aeroactive Cooler on and remove it about 10 times a day, it's still over 11 years. So, hey. And with regards to motorized stuff, typically I'm not a fan of motorized parts on a phone, but ASUS has so far not really had any major negative reports with the flip cameras that they've done for a few generations on their Zenfone lineup. So I'm kind of interested to see what this brings to the table. Okay, let's now get to the even more interesting part of this video. How does Mediatek fare? How does it compete? How does it compare? Should you even be crazy enough to consider a flagship gaming phone with a Mediatek chip inside? Well, let's check it out. Guys, this is the ROG Phone 6 Pro. This is the ROG Phone 60 Ultimate. Now, of course, this one I've just taken out of the box, and this one I've factory wiped. And then I've let both phones cool, and I have updated them to their latest firmware. So there is no new update available. They're both at 100% charge, and they are on X mode. I've also made sure the auto brightness is turned off and they're set to the same brightness levels. Now the reason I've made sure both of them are on full charge and they've been cooled down is because, well, we're going to be running a bunch of tests. Let's also see what kind of battery stats we end up with at the end of these tests. Interesting, right? Alright guys, before we get the tests running, here's a quick look at the thermals. Without doing anything right at the start, we've got 28, 29 degrees at the bottom and 26, 27 across the rest of this ROG 6 Pro. Pretty much the same with the, maybe 0.2, 0.3 degrees more on the ROG 6D. So it's all pretty much the same. That we've now established the room temperature. Let's now get started with 3D Mark Wildlife Extreme stress test. So now what's going to happen is we're going to have 20 loops of graphically intensive testing that's going to happen. And let's see how these two phones fare. So guys, now that the test is done, we've got the same amount of battery left, 87% on both. The numbers are obviously a little better with the ROG Phone 6 Pro, about let's say 5% better. But if you look at stability scores, both of them around 99%, so excellent stability. Now this is without even plugging in that Aeroactive cooler. So let's quickly get to temps. So here's the thermal camera, and now this is on the ROG Phone 6 Pro. We've got 36 degrees at a point, and something similar going on with the ROG 6 Ultimate, 6D Ultimate as well. There's not a lot of difference. Let's now look at the temps to the back. The ROG Phone 6 Pro has a hotspot at the center, 35.6 degrees. About the same, there's not a lot of difference with heat generation. Now I'm going to let these phones cool down before moving on to the next test. It is worth noting that Wildlife Extreme is a pretty stressful stress test. Now to get 99% stability on it, it's frankly nuts. I mean, some flagships, for example, the Xiaomi ones, they don't even complete a couple of loops before throwing up this error for overheating. So it's very impressive to see 99% across both these phones. Okay, the phones have cooled down enough. We've got 28 degrees, pretty much down to room temperature. There's like a 1 degree difference, doesn't really amount to much. So let's go ahead, get the next test started. Okay, now we are done with Geek Bench, and surprisingly, the Dimensity has better scores here. From a temps perspective, there's not a lot different. It's 31 at one point. On the ROG 6 Pro, the Dimensity is maybe a degree higher. There's a little bit more of spread with regards to the heat. Now from a battery perspective, the ROG Phone 6T has dropped 1% more. Now given that both of them have badly broken a sweat here, I'm just going to straight up jump into Antutu. Okay, starting the test. The scores are pretty close here, as you can see, but when you do look at it a little closer, you see that the 6D, it does a better job with CPU, which of course was expected since it has a 5% boost on Mediatek's own clock speeds with the large X2 core, and the A710s, they clock 10 to 10%, 12% more. So this was kind of expected. Also expected, as we saw with the 3D Mark results, is the Qualcomm version winning GPU. The memory scores aren't surprising either, given LPDDR5X versus 5, though I'm not really sure why the UX scores differ. Now, if you have any explanation for that, let me know in the comments below. Now, before we get to how these phones fared across multiple runs of Antutu, a quick shout out to video sponsor Anbernic. If you like handheld gaming, if you live in a market where the Steam Deck is not available, but still want to get a taste of what playing proper Windows games on a handheld is like, Anbernic has something to offer. Starting at $299, the Win600 is a full-fledged PC in a handheld form factor. This one's powered by either an AMD 3020E or 3050E with up to 16 gigs of RAM and a full terabyte of storage. It's a nice little starter handheld that can run a whole lot of retro titles and even some simpler Windows ones. To know more about the Anbernic Win600, check out the link in the description below. Now, coming back to Antutu, I ran this particular test over and over again, six more times without any break in between. So no time to cool down, just one after another. And the scores, they badly changed. Even at the end of it all, as you can see here, between test 1 and 7, there's a performance drop of about 0.4% on the ROG Phone 6 Pro, 1.25% on the ROG Phone 6T Ultimate. Now that's pretty negligible. So for all intents and purposes, even after an hour of intense use, say gaming, the performance you get would still be the same as the performance you had when you started. However, there is one area where there is a noticeable difference, and that would be with battery life. Now, if you remember, after our 3D Mark stress test, both of them were on par. After Geek Bench, the 60 had dropped 1% more. By the end of all of this, let's say about 2+ hours of testing, the difference is a whopping 12%. The Qualcomm chip does seem to drain lesser battery when pushed. Additionally, GSM Arena also reports that the standby drain is a lot lesser with Qualcomm. So knowing all that, what do we have here? Now the ROG Phone 6D, it definitely seems to be an awesome phone. It's okay, unarguably the most powerful CPU on a gaming phone today. It's surprisingly competitive with the Qualcomm variant with respect to GPU as well. Well, all that is true. Personally, if I had a choice to choose between these two, that is the ROG Phone 6 with Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 and the ROG Phone 6D with the Dimensity 9000 Plus, I would still probably go Qualcomm, because GPU is typically more important for gaming, while CPU, yes, for emulation, it is going to be useful, not disagreeing there. But given the state of high-end emulation, for example, where Citra is or where Skyline is today, I don't think that kind of emulation is really going to be, you're going to be doing a lot of that on Android as of how things stand right now. So with respect to GPU, I will take all the GPU horsepower and the extra battery life. But then again, this is how I see it. There are going to be very few markets where ASUS is going to make all 4 SKUs available. ASUS have a lot of availability issues, and that's me underselling it. So if I lived in a market where the Qualcomm variant wasn't available, I wouldn't really be bummed out picking this one up. But if I had the choice, I'd still go Qualcomm. Any which ways, guys, as far as pricing goes, this does start cheaper, not by much, but by a little. But this is also the most expensive variant. 16512 6D, the Ultra, that does cost more than the ROG Phone 6 Pro, but that also includes that €89 worth Aeroactive Cooler 6. All the pricing you see, it's in euros because that's the only market in which ASUS have announced pricing for all 4 SKUs. So for people to be able to compare and extrapolate, I decided to give the pricing in euros. Anyways, there you have it. That's the ROG Phone 6D, ASUS's first flagship phone with a Mediatek SoC on the inside. What do you think about it? Like it, hate it, have more complex emotions? Leave a comment down below. And with that, we are at the end of this quick little video. Thumbs up, thumbs down based on whatever you felt about it. Subscribe, turn on notifications, hit that bell icon if you haven't yet. And thanks for your time. Thanks for watching. Until next time, my name's Ash. You've been watching C4E Tech, and I'm signing off for now. You guys have a great day. Bye-bye.